Hey everybody, how's it going? It's a Daily Shooter, and have you found yourself yelling at your TV lately because you're watching a Democratic presidential candidate give a town hall or an interview? The topic of the Second Amendment comes up and they start spewing out all sorts of misinformation. Well, you're definitely not alone. A lot of us wish we could just jump through the TV and explain the Second Amendment to these people so they get a clear understanding of exactly how it works. So let's go ahead and talk about some of that misinformation today, and we'll talk about exactly why they're saying it. This channel is proud to be supported by the Firearms Policy Coalition. Make sure you check the link in the description box, sign up, become a member, and do your part to fight for our rights. Now, the first and possibly even the most frustrating piece of misinformation coming from the left recently has to do with rights versus privilege. You'll see a lot of these Democrat presidential candidates on TV talking about the Second Amendment, and they'll be talking about it as if it's a privilege. They'll use things like driver's licenses in order to reinforce their claims. They'll say stuff like, if you need a driver's license in order to operate a vehicle, you should need some type of license in order to operate a firearm, completely ignoring the fact that a driver's license is a privilege and the Second Amendment is a right. Now, they're doing this on purpose, and they're doing it repetitively. If somebody who is on the fence about gun control, somebody who's on the fence about the Second Amendment, consistently sees these people on TV talking about the Second Amendment as a privilege, they may eventually start to believe it and start to swing more towards the gun control way, and maybe even follow that person. But they're also doing it in order to solidify the preconceived notion that their base already has about the Second Amendment. So they're doing this repetitively, they're trying to get in people's heads, and they're talking about it again as a privilege when we all know that the Second Amendment is a right. The second that you put a license in front of a right, it's no longer a right, it's now become a privilege. So they fail to grasp that. And now try and keep in mind that these people are very educated people. They know what they're doing, they know how to control people, they know how to talk, that's their job. And so they're trying to, get these people to come to their side. So the biggest piece, for me at least, of misinformation that I'm seeing recently has to do with privilege versus right. Now, the second piece of misinformation that is consistently used by the left is based on terminology and definition. The left loves to use the words assault weapon and sniper rifle in order to explain what they're talking about. And they do this repeatedly to make it as mainstream as possible. And they've done a pretty good job at it so far. If you turn on your local newscast and a weapon of that type was used in a crime, then the local newscaster will probably use that term in order to explain it. So they've used that repetition in order to put it in people's minds, and that's the common definition that people use now when they're talking about these types of firearms. But when they say sniper rifle, we all know that what they're talking about is probably just your dad's hunting rifle or something like that that has a scope on it, it's bolt action. We also know that when they talk about assault weapons, that it's a made-up term in order to create fear in other people that really don't know much about firearms. Now, the third piece of information that the left loves to put out there has to do with numbers. They love their stats, but the problem is that their stats are almost always wrong. The left loves to pad their statistics by taking numbers from different research projects, FBI statistics, and so forth in order to pad their numbers and make the problem seem even worse. So if you take one research statistic from here, one research statistic from here, and you put the numbers together, and then you take a look at a couple different things from the FBI and you add those in just to give it a little bit of validity, it makes the problem seem much more inflated. And if that problem seems much more inflated and much worse, then you're more likely to get people to believe you and think there's an actual problem. So I'm saying that stats, numbers, and basically most facts or quote-unquote facts that the left likes to put out there, they're wrong. Now, try and keep in mind that it's not just the left. There are people on the right who believe the same thing, who push the false numbers, who push the false narrative and try and get people brainwashed into thinking what they think. However, it's the left that's the biggest perpetrator of this. And I say that because if you look at the platform for each one of the presidential candidates that's running right now, you'll notice that each one has some type of gun control as a major agenda item. It's not just that gun control is a side note to them, but no, it's a major platform item for each one of these people. And if you ask them about it, they'll be happy to tell you all about how they plan gun control once they come into office. So being the fact that the Democrats seem to have a pretty much majority share of the gun control agenda right now, that's kind of why I'm talking about the left specifically in this one. But it is very important to keep your eyes open and notice that, look, you might see a wolf in sheep's clothing if you look over on the right as well. They are there, okay? These people don't want any type of challenge to their power, and getting rid of the Second Amendment is a good way to do that. Now, the fourth and final piece of misinformation that I want to talk about from the left today has to do with the fact that they say that their gun control agenda will actually work. It will actually stop crime, even though that they know this is a lie. Now, I can say that that's a lie because I've lived in the state of California for the past 42 years, and all of the parts and pieces of their gun control agendas are already enacted here in the state of California. We have 10-day waiting periods. We have a safe handgun roster. We have universal background checks. We have registration. We have just about everything that you can imagine here in order to restrict our Second Amendment rights, and it really hasn't stopped anything. If you guys watch the news, you'll see California in the news all the time. You'll see a lot of local events and things happen that just completely blow you out of the water because there's no way that these are going to happen if these laws are already in place. That's what they want you to believe. But in California, with these laws already in place, what we basically see is the criminals getting a run of the territory. They get a run of the territory because the only good people that are actually going to follow these laws are law-abiding citizens. The criminals already don't care about the laws. That's why they're criminals. So they're not going to follow these laws. The law-abiding citizens are, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be at risk because our politicians have absolutely no clue about what they're talking about. So when you hear somebody say that they want to enact these things on a national level in order to make us a safer place, well, I can tell you, in California, we already have it, and it's not a safer place. Now, try and keep in mind that these views and opinions are solely my own. It might be different than your view or your opinion. That's perfectly fine. That's where the First Amendment kicks in. If you have a different opinion, go ahead and leave that down in the comment section, and everybody can have a debate. Now, if you want to support this channel, I do have a Patreon page, which I'll link below. And I want to say thank you to all of my current Patreons. You guys are the best. You're keeping the lights on around here. And honestly, words cannot explain how appreciative I am for all of you. Now, I also want to thank Firearms Policy Coalition for supporting the channel. I'll put a link down below. Go ahead and join the Firearms Policy Coalition and actually be a part of the fight instead of just sitting on the couch and ranting and raving about all these new laws that are coming out. Become a member and see what's going on. These guys are fighting for our rights. Anyway, I want to thank you all very much for watching. Please like, subscribe. Have a great day.